Bonjour, mes amis. Welcome to another adventure in French. Hey, what time is it? Or as we say in French, quelle heure est-il? Why am I asking? Because that's what our lesson is all about today. Telling time in French. Before we get started, I want to make sure you know a certain amount of vocabulary that we're going to be using. All right, the first word I want to make you aware of is the word for hour, which is heure. Heure. That means hour. Plural is heure with an S. All right? So remember, that means hours. Okay? Make sure you see that. Okay. Heure, hour, or hours. All right? The second word I want to make you aware of is the word minuit. Minuit. And that means midnight. Minuit, midnight. All right? Another word I want you to be aware of is the word midi. And midi is the word for noon. And then some very handy expressions you will want to know. Du matin. Du matin means in the morning. De l'après-midi. Après means after. So this means in the afternoon. And then I'd like to introduce you to the phrase du soir, which means in the evening. All right? So let me quickly review those. We have the word heure, which means hour or hours. We have the word minuit, which means midnight. We have the word midi, which means noon. And then our three expressions, du matin, in the morning, de l'après-midi, in the afternoon, and du soir, for in the evening. All right? I think we're ready to get started then. Let me get my X's back up here. All right. There we go. First thing, let's learn about time notation. In English, time notation works like this. We take the hour, we do a colon, and then we do the minutes. So that 6:00 is 6 o'clock. All right? Well, French does not note time like this. It's similar, but not exactly like this. Here's how the French would represent this same time. They would do the hour, all right, but instead of the colon, a small letter H, and then your minutes. The small letter H stands for the word heure, which we know means hours. So what they're saying here is 6 hours and 0 minutes. All right? So don't look for the colon in French. Look for the H. All right. Well, how would you say this? For the French, very easy. You just take the number of the hours, which is in this case 6. You add the word heure, noting it's plural because we have 6 of them. And there you go. 6 heures. And that means 6 o'clock. All right. What if you wanted to specify that it's 6 o'clock in the morning? That's right. You would add our phrase we just learned, du matin, 6 o'clock in the morning. Well, what if it's 6 o'clock in the evening? Right again. You're going to add the expression that means in the evening, which we just learned was du soir. So you either have 6 heures du matin or 6 heures du soir. Note that the French do not use AM and PM. All right? Instead, you're going to have du matin and du soir. All right. And when the time is in the afternoon, you can use the expression de l'après-midi. But for me, 6 o'clock is beyond the afternoon hour. I consider it to be evening. All right. Now, the French also use 24-hour time. which is, of course, slightly different than 12-hour time. In 12-hour time, you go around the clock twice, and you have an AM time and you have a PM time, so that you're going to have two 6 o'clocks, a 6 a.m. and a 6 p.m., and likewise for all the other times too. In 24-hour time, you just go around the clock once. You count the hours from one midnight to the next midnight, so that midnight is 0 hour. Okay? Well, 6 o'clock in the morning in 24-hour time would still be represented by 6H00 because it's 6 hours after midnight. But what if we're talking about 6 o'clock in the evening, like it says here? Well, you wouldn't say 6H00 in 24-hour time because obviously it's well past 6 hours past midnight. No, you're going to say 18 or 18 hours past midnight. That's 6 o'clock in the evening. All right? So you can turn your AM into PM time by simply adding 12 to the hour. Okay? And likewise, you can turn PM into AM time with the 24-hour clock by subtracting 12 from the hour. Okay. So this would not be 6 heures anymore in 24-hour time. It would be 18 heures. And you would never say du soir with that because you don't have to, because obviously 18 is in the evening. Okay? And you'll see the French use both kinds of time. They use 12-hour time and they also use 24-hour time. So you're going to see both of them, so you need to get used to both of those. All right. Let's go back now to our 6 o'clock. Okay. Let's say now it's 10 minutes after 6. All right? I would represent that by 6H and then the number 10. All right? The H stands for the colon. Otherwise, it's the same way that we would note time in English. Okay? Now, how do we say that? Very easy. We would say 6h10. Just the hours, and then we add the number of the minutes on the end. Just like we would in English, we'd say, well, we wouldn't say 6 o'clock 10, we'd say 6:10. The French say 6h10, okay? But it's just the number, the hours, and then the number of minutes. All right, 6h10. Very easy. And then if you want to, du matin or du soir, okay. Well, let's say now it's 6:15, okay? Well, I could say 6h. What's the word for 15? That's right. 15. 6h15. Or they have another thing you can use. 6h. Now remember in English, sometimes people say it's a quarter past 6 for 6:15. Well, the French have a similar expression, and it is 6h15. And that's the same as a quarter past 6. Literally means 6 hours and a quarter. All right? 6h15. So you have two ways that you can say 6:15. All right? Let's say 15 minutes has passed now, and it's now 6:30. All right? In French, that would be 6 heures. Our word for 30 is 30. So we have 6h30. Or just like in English, we can say it's half past 6. The French equivalent of that is 6h30. Demi meaning half. It's 6 hours and a half. 6h30. So we have two ways that we can say 6:30. Okay? Well, let's say 10 minutes has passed now. Here we are at 6:40. Or 6h, right, 40. That's the word for 40. 6h40. Now, but look what we can do. Since it's past the half hour, many times in English, people will say, well, it's 20 minutes till 7. Okay? They're telling you how many minutes to the next hour. You can do the same thing in French. If we want to say 20 minutes till 7, we can't say 6 heures anymore because we're using 7 as the hour. So we would say instead 7 heures. Then a handy expression, moins, and moins simply means minus. 7 heures moins and then the word 20 for 20, because it's 7 hours minus 20. And that's the French way of saying 20 minutes till 7. You go to the next hour and you tell how many minutes less it is. All right? 7 heures moins 20. 7 hours minus 20. So you have two ways that you can say 6:40. All right. Well, let's say now that 5 minutes has passed. It's 6:45. All right. How would we say this? Okay. Well, we could simply say 6h40, and then our word for 45, 45. 6h45. We could say it is 7 heures moins, how many minutes? Well, it's less 15 minutes, so we'd use our word for 15. 7 heures moins 15, 15 till 7. Or sometimes we'll say in English, it's a quarter till 7. Okay, well, in French, you have an expression where you can say a quarter till, and that would be 7 heures. Well, I didn't mean to capitalize that. 7 heures moins le quart. 7 hours minus the quarter. Now, notice when we use minus, we have to use the le in front of quart. When we were adding it, we just said a quart. But now when we're minusing it, for some reason, we have to use the le. That's just the way it is. 7 heures moins le quart. 7 o'clock minus the quarter. Okay? And that's 6:45. All right. Getting the hang of it? It's really not that difficult. As long as you know your numbers from 1 to 59, all right, you can tell time all day long by simply saying the number of hours, then the number of minutes. You can go all the way from 6 heures, 6h01, all the way to 6h59, 6:59. And you can always tell time this way. But you need to be aware of the other ways to express time, because you're not always in control of how you hear it. And somebody else, and you go to France one day, may want to use one of these other expressions. So you need to be able to listen for it and understand it when you hear it. Okay? And that's really about all there is to telling time. Please remember that the French will use both a 12-hour clock and a 24-hour clock. So practice on your 24-hour times. And you know what? I think it's time for me to say goodbye. Au revoir, mes amis. À bientôt.